Good evening. Holyrood is now being rocked by the sexual harassment scandal that's engulfed Westminster. A Labour MSP has revealed she was sexually assaulted by a colleague. Meanwhile, the First Minister is considering who should replace the SNP MSP Mark MacDonald as Children's Minister after he quit over his behaviour. Here's our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr.
Monica Lennon is a rising star in the Labour movement, but her allegations paint a dark picture of the party. In the Sunday Mail, she says she was sexually assaulted by a senior male colleague at a party event. Ms Lennon initially reported the 2013 incident to the party, but then didn't take it further, fearing she wouldn't be believed. She says a culture change is needed as victims of harassment and assault are not being supported, and spoke about the issue in general last week.
I think it would be hard to find a woman who hasn't been humiliated by a man, whether it's sexism or harassment. There's obviously a spectrum of behaviour that we're talking about, and at the most serious end of that is sexual assault and rape.
Labour said they take appropriate action on evidence of misconduct. The two men vying to lead the party suggested how they would tackle the problem.
What we've got to try and do is create the space for women to be able to come forward and speak if they wish to do so, not being forced to come forward, but if they wish to do so, create safe spaces for women to come forward and then fundamentally take this culture head on.
I am somebody who strongly supports the idea of an independent channel that people can go down so that they are not speaking to people where there may be a perceived or an actual conflict of interest.
Meanwhile, the First Minister is looking for a new Children's Minister after Mark MacDonald unexpectedly quit last night. The Aberdeen Donside MP stepped down from government over past actions he said had been considered to be inappropriate. It's a blow for Nicola Sturgeon to lose a minister widely regarded as a safe pair of hands, who recently had been tweeting his support for victims of harassment. Another SNP MSP, Willie Coffey, was said by the Sunday Post to have been reported to Holyrood authorities after a civil servant complained about his behaviour. The Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley MSP says he doesn't recognise the claims. Scotland has now been hit by the story that's engulfing Westminster. Perhaps, like the expenses scandal, voters are going to get increasingly angry at what they're seeing. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland.
2 men have died following a fire at a house in Ayrshire. Police and the emergency services were called to the property in Troon this morning. Police are investigating after a 22-year-old woman was sexually assaulted in Aberdeen. It happened early this morning. There are calls for an investigation after a fireworks display in Elgin went wrong, forcing spectators to flee. Some of the pyrotechnics fired into the crowd at the town's Cooper Park last night. No one was seriously injured, but some people, including children, suffered minor burns. The former advisor to Donald Trump has suggested the US president could support Scottish independence in a future referendum, but only if it makes economic sense. Sebastian Gorka worked in the White House until August. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
America first.
President Trump has pulled America out of international agreements and supported the UK as it prepares to withdraw from the European Union.
Everything the president does is linked by one word: sovereignty. He believes that nation states prosper when they are sovereign.
In which case, might he support Scottish independence in a future referendum?
If it makes sense, pragmatically, why wouldn't he support it? I'm not saying he's there, but he is somebody who looks at the reality, not the utopia.
In 2014, President Obama backed the Union, but Donald Trump avoided taking sides.
3, 2, 1.
More recently, he said independence would be terrible because Scottish courses, of which he owns 2, might lose out on hosting the Open Championship. This former First Minister is sure the President could be won round, but questions the value of his backing.
The cause of Scottish independence depends on many, many things. It depends ultimately on having a vision of the future where you look at how Scotland is governed and how the world is governed in a positive, enlightened, progressive way. I cannot feel that Donald Trump would do anything other than damage that vision by association.
In any event, these days Donald Trump seems much closer to UK nationalists than those who want Scotland to be an independent state. Glenn Campbell reporting Scotland.
Sebastian Gorka was interviewed for Donald Trump, Scotland's president, which will be broadcast on BBC One Scotland at 9 o'clock on Thursday night. Football, and there was a minute's silence before kick-off at Murrayfield for the former Hearts player Stefano Salvatore. He died last week, aged 49. You can see the match between Hearts and Kilmarnock on BBC Alba in a few minutes' time. If you don't want to know the score, look away now. Let's now get the weather with Judith.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Well, the weather gods were certainly smiling on us today. It was a beautiful day, and we're starting to see the snow settling on the mountains, as captured here by one of our weather watchers. That's Ben Kendrick there in the background. But it is bonfire night, so it's going to be a cold one, but it will be dry, so do wrap up warm and have a good time as well. So a predominantly dry picture. 1 or 2 showers in the west and over the north, now dying away. A widespread frost developing fairly quickly tonight as temperatures fall away sharply, down to around freezing for many of us, if not a few degrees below. But then we'll see a band of rain pushing into the west coast with cloud thickening up by the morning, along with a strengthening southerly wind. So tomorrow morning starts dry but fairly cloudy, the best of any brightness tomorrow in the east, but this band of rain in the west becomes stuck across the northwest and north of Argyll, becoming more persistent and heavy, and we will have quite a windy day with gales in coastal areas. As far as the rest of the UK is concerned, it's fairly cloudy for Northern Ireland, some spots of rain or showers across the western side, good sunny spells in the east, and temperatures are around about, if not just above the seasonal average. We're looking at highs of around 10 or 11 Celsius here in Scotland. Now, as we approach dusk, we'll see that band of rain across the northwest gradually extending south and eastwards overnight. So it'll be wet and windy tomorrow night. But then come Tuesday, we see that weather front pulling away, taking the rain with it, a brief ridge of high pressure. So once that rain clears the east, we're looking at a lot of dry and indeed sunny weather, just 1 or 2 showers in the west, and winds will be lighter as well. That's your forecast.
Thanks, Judith. And that's Reporting Scotland. Our next update is just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone on the team here in Glasgow, bye for now.